Manpreet, I'm going to come to you. Those benefits of getting outdoors really are huge, aren't they? Like, what happens in the brain
Absolutely.
when we get outdoors?
There's just so many health and well-being benefits for all of us, for carers as well as the person diagnosed. So it provides us with a sense of belonging. It helps to modulate that our circadian rhythms, so our sleeping and our eating patterns.
And what are our
Gives us
circadian rhythms? Sorry, just to
Sorry, so
elaborate a
it's
bit
our
on
sleeping and our eating. It's our internal body clock almost.
that.
So
Right.
going out outside, getting that light helps to modulate that and gives us also all the vitamin D that we need to keep our bones healthy and to keep our energy levels up.
A big immune boost, isn't it? Particularly like
Yeah,
flu time of year, colds, flus,
absolutely.
bugs. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I think we're live. So, hello and welcome to the very first Dementia Adventure Unpacking Dementia Facebook session live. This is really exciting for us. We've not done this before, so do bear with us a little bit. My name's Ruth and I'm one of the programme leaders here at Dementia Adventure. Now, I lead on our carers services and I feel really privileged to be able to do that. Like yourselves, I have cared in the past. I was a sole carer for my grandfather. So although today I sit here with a professional hat on, I do come with some personal experience as well. Now, I'm incredibly lucky to be joined by one of my colleagues, Manpreet, and Jill, who is also in that carer's perspective as well. She was a carer for her mum, but I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves in a minute. Before we get started on today's session, just a little bit of housekeeping. Please feel free to ask any questions or leave any comments that you've got in the chat function. We will absolutely do our best to answer those while we're on air. But I can assure you, if we don't get to your question, once the show has finished, we will go through all comments and we will respond to those accordingly. I'd also just like to do a really quick shout out to Right at Home as they've sponsored this episode. Now, we're incredibly lucky. We're going to be doing some partnership work with them across 2025. It's a really exciting time for us. So massive shout out to them. Thank you so much for your sponsorship on this session. Now, I think that's just about everything. Now, why are we doing today's session? Well, according to the internet, today is Blue Monday, which is apparently the most depressing day of the year. This is due to a number of things. People believe it's those post-Christmas blues, cold, dark nights, return back to work, lots of grey, dark weather. But whether or not that's true, I think it's a really great place for us to start. And we're going to start by unpacking those winter blues. We're going to be thinking about how we can lift that mood, how we can support the person we're looking after to lift that mood. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm joined today with Manpreet and Jill. So hello to both of you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's introduce ourselves. Manpreet, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so my name's Manpreet and I'm a programme leader for research here at Dementia Adventure. My role is to bring up-to-date research to the organisation so that we can help those living with dementia to live as well as they can. I'm currently working with various universities and it's quite an exciting time for new projects. My nan had dementia some years ago, so I have that personal experience as well. I'm based in the Midlands and it's quite a grey, wintry day here, but I am really looking forward to this session.
Amazing. Thanks, Manpreet. That's awesome. Lots and lots of interesting work going on with the research, particularly into dementia around this at the moment. So that's great. Jill, what about you? Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jill, and from my perspective, I've been a family carer for my mum for around 10 years. Mum was diagnosed with vascular dementia back in 2018, so there was that support for her. And then professionally, for the last 15 years, I've actually worked within the dementia care field for the Alzheimer Society as a support worker, specifically for carers of people with dementia. And the last 10 years, I've actually worked for Dementia Adventure as a supported break volunteer, and the last 6 years as an adventure leader. So that's my experience through, obviously, dementia care, both professionally and personally.
So a wealth of knowledge with us today, which is amazing. So let's get started. And I'm going to start, Manpreet, by asking, what are the winter blues? Are they common? What does this look like for
Right,
people?
so Blue Monday was actually created by a travel agency 20 years ago, just to boost bookings in January. So as you said, it's apparently the most depressing day of the year. While the scientific validity of this day can be questioned, actually the winter blues are really very common, as I'm sure most of us have experienced in some capacity. So the shorter days, reduced sunlight can affect our internal body clock or our circadian rhythm. So that means our sleep may be affected. We might feel sluggish. Our appetite might change. We might not exercise or move as much. All of this, of course, affects our mood and may make us feel like there's, very little to look forward to. And for a person living with dementia and their carer, they may also be affected in these ways. So yeah, it's very common to experience the winter blues. I'm not sure if we actually need to label today as the most depressing day of the year. It's actually National Cheese Lovers Day too, so we could focus on that, couldn't we? But for today, the winter blues does open up the conversation for our well-being in the winter.
It doesn't. And I'm right in thinking there is a condition, SADS, isn't there, about seasonal affective disorder. And that is really when people, take that to an extreme level. But actually, some of the therapies around that can support lifting those moods. So those light therapies and that encouragement to get outside when there's sunlight can also be really beneficial for any of us when we're feeling low. Would you agree?
Yeah, so SAD, seasonal affective disorder, actually is a form of depression and affects around 2 million people in the UK. And interestingly, it can affect people in the warmer months as well, and not just winter. But the winter blues is something that most of us experience. Post-Christmas, we've had that nice festive time with our family. We're back to our routines. The days feel long. Days feel short.
They feel really short, yeah.
The days are short, but they feel long. And that, all culminates into these blues, as we might call them.
Absolutely. And Jill, how did you find that? Because I know obviously when you're caring, it's exhausting, regardless of time of year. But did you find winter became particularly challenging?
Yeah, it was in the fact that my mum never liked the cold anyway. She was always cold, even in the summer sometimes. And as her dementia progressed, that obviously increased. So it was very difficult for me to persuade mum to actually go outdoors, even just for a short walk, because straight away she would always be constantly looking at the weather on the TV and she'd see that it might be sort of like 2, 3, 4 degrees. And obviously up here in Yorkshire where we are, sometimes the weather obviously was worse than it was elsewhere in the country. So she had that mindset a lot of the time that she couldn't go out because it was cold.
Yeah.
So it was trying to persuade mum to wrap up warm and to sort of say, yeah, we can have a little walk around the village, mum, and you might see some of your friends. And she'd loved chatting to people. So that sometimes was the hook to
Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah.
mum, with a coat on and some her boots with the good grip, which was really important as well because she was prone to falling and she'd had a couple
Right.
of previous falls, one of which was off the step at the back of the house when it was icy some years previously. But I found again as mum's dementia progressed, the things that had happened in the dim and distant past then came to the fore, and one
Yeah.
of them was this fall she'd had.
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, I can see that we've had a really amazing question from Hazel about how can carers combat those feelings of isolation in the winter. And I think from what you were saying, because you're then having to encourage the person you're supporting to get out, it becomes really, really isolating. I think one of the things from my perspective when I'm working with carers is I would always encourage people to reach out to local carers organisations, people in your local area, and friends and family, carers organisations, because they often know what's going on for somebody living with dementia in your area. And I know, Jill, you've got amazing experience with some of the carers organisations in your area, but friends and family, I don't know about you guys. I think we're really, really typical of, people offer help. Oh, what can I do? And we go, oh, no, 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 it's fine. No, thanks ever so much. Whereas actually, I found when I was caring for my granddad, it was really helpful to go, do you know what? Could you just come around and have a cup of coffee? I could just do with a bit of like company, a bit of conversation. Really, really helped me. So I don't know, Jill, what did you find with that? What would you advise Hazel on that one?
I think what it is, different areas around the country, as you know, have different support networks.
Yeah.
So I found since they were introduced some years ago through Dementia UK, that the Admiral nurses are a fantastic point of contact. And you can go
Yeah.
on the Dementia UK website and you can put in the area where you live and it will highlight if you do have Admiral nurses who are covering
And
that
they have a phone number,
area.
don't they, as well, if you've not got an actual nurse. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
They're a brilliant, brilliant service for this.
Obviously, the Alzheimer's Society. I worked for the Alzheimer's Society for 5 years myself, from 2010 as a dementia support worker. So again, they have a helpline. You can put in which area you live. You can give them a call. You can go online, and they will have links to what support services are available in the area.
Yeah.
And Carers UK, obviously, different organisations who are there specifically to support carers of people with dementia and any illness or condition, any age. So I worked as well for a charity in Wakefield called Carers Wakefield and District, who support any carers, including young carers.
Yeah.
But my role specifically was supporting the carers of people with dementia. So looking at which local organisations there are, because a lot of these organisations do run cafes, support groups, singing for the brain sessions, all sorts. There's
It's
also
company, isn't it? Yeah, and
it is, and
it's meeting others in that same situation. I know I met so many carers, and I continue to do so in a professional sense now, who, are often quite different people. Not people I'd have thought I'd have much in common with, if I'm honest with you, but actually sitting down with a cuppa and just going, do you know what, this is really tough, or I don't know what to do. We're finding, there's periods where my granddad wasn't sleeping and was up in the night, and, just getting another perspective of it. Now, often it didn't make a hard day any easier, but you know what? It did really, really brighten it. I think another service that is not so well known is social prescribers. So I know Manpreet and I have done some work with social prescribers. They're an amazing set of professionals, and it's like a holistic approach to supporting somebody, often linked with a GP. Again, bit of a postcode lottery depending on where you are. It depends on how you access them, but your GP certainly should be able to tell you if you've got one in your area. But they also, know how to lift mood more naturally. They know about different groups, things like cognitive stimulation therapy, cognitive behaviour therapy, which again can really support, interacting with others, removing that isolation.
Is it also worth mentioning befriending services? So if somebody's feeling that they're unable to leave home because the person that they're caring for cannot leave, or is unable to leave, having a befriender come in to give that carer just that little bit of time and space to be able to leave the house, go for a walk, whether it's 20 minutes or something, is a really valuable resource.
I'm just going to quickly, I know I'm going to ask our tech team, there's an article about going back to what you were saying, Jill, about your mum not wanting to get outside when it's cold. And they've got a really lovely article about how to support somebody living with dementia in the cold weather. And it just sort of really unravels actually the different approaches we can take doing that. So I'm going to get our tech team to pop that up in the chat, and that will be there for you to have a look at. But we've also got another question from Kelvin here. What advice do you have for carers who feel guilty about not doing enough during tough times? Oh, carer guilt. Jill, I'm going to go straight to you on that one, because I think we all know how it feels, but you're probably best placed to answer it.
Yeah, I think no matter what you decide and what you choose to do and how you do support someone with living with dementia, there is always that guilt element there. So with my mum, as I say, it dependent on the weather. If it was really cold, sometimes it was just an impossibility to get mum outdoors. So, and then I felt guilty because I knew if she did go out, even just a little walk around the village and seeing a couple of people she knew, and sometimes we'd get invited for a cup of tea, which was great, I knew she would benefit. So I felt guilty in the fact that I couldn't persuade mum to do that. But as you'll know, there's only so much you can do. And if my mum was quite headstrong, and if she didn't want to go, she didn't want to go. So what I tried to do then sometimes was to bring the outdoors inside. So, lots of plants, indoor plants. My mum loved the smell of lavender, so you'd have the lavender, very sensory, smart TVs, and obviously streaming services. There's lots of programs on the TV. My mum loved gardening. So if I couldn't get her out, we would go onto the TV, get lots of programs in about the gardens, different areas.
I'll tell you what I did find when things became really, really tough, and I felt guilty about not doing enough, actually, and as I've grown professionally, but also when I've been caring for a family member, is learning that actually sometimes we feel like it should be this really big two-way conversation. And, you know, dementia changes that, and accepting that dementia changes that was key. So sometimes I learned that actually having a really lovely 5-minute interaction with my granddad became much more than having a long drawn out one that he maybe felt was quite challenging over half an hour. So sometimes it was, you know, if he was having a particularly tough day, I feel like I couldn't do enough with him. So sometimes what I might do is just sit with him and we might share a photo album together. You know, he adored looking at my kids when they were little, and it just gave him great joy. Now, there was times we could really converse and communicate about that, but there was other times where actually just sitting and looking at the photo was enough, and then maybe he'd have a nap. And it was my approach that needed to change. It was accepting that things are different, that relationship is very different. Equally, it's very, very easy to sit here now and say that, you know, with a professional hat on, easy, and I know Manfred is nodding away there. But being kind to yourself, I think giving yourself a break and understanding that with you in this person's life, their life is much more enhanced than it wouldn't be. So, you know, just be careful, be kind to yourself, you know, and accept that actually on a bad day, sometimes just sitting with somebody is enough. You know, it doesn't have to be a great big experience, but equally, if we can do those little things, and it might be something as little as bringing something indoors from outside, maybe taking a cuppa outside. You know, it might not be that walk around the village that day. That might not happen. And accepting that actually that input is still going to be valuable, even if it doesn't feel like it is. So yeah, I hope that's helped.
Something that might help on a practical day-to-day basis is writing down the small wins of the day at the end of the day, just to remind yourself that actually today we went for a walk around the garden, or we tried to, but actually we only made it to the end of the driveway, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Writing those down so that at the end of the day you can see actually we did have some wins today, however small they may be.
Absolutely. So celebrating those little successes.
Yeah,
Actually, do you know what? On that, there's been some really lovely comments that have popped up, and I'm just going to highlight those quickly. Jackie has shared that there's an app called Joy. Now, this is not one I've heard of, so I'm really going to look into. Really good resource. You can put in your area to see what is happening. All sorts is listed there, and it's a social prescriber resource. And we've got a social prescriber with us. Yay! Thank you, Rosie. Really, really great to see you. Our local Age UK supports running COGS clubs for people with early dementia. And again, it is location specific, but there is so much out there when you start to look. Now, do you know what? I'm going to go back, because I think when you start to look, it can be really, really overwhelming. And actually, you don't always know what you're looking for. That is where, and I'm going to take you right back to the beginning of this conversation, where somebody says, "You're right. Do you want a bit of help?" That can be a brilliant way of going, "Can you see what's going on in the area? Is there anything that I can take mum to?" Do you know what I mean, Jill? Did you find that having those conversations with friends just lifted your responsibility a little bit?
It did, and I think once someone actually maybe attends a cafe for the first time, or a support group, there in that room lots of people who have been in that same position as them.
Yeah.
Everybody sits and chats, and the information sharing that goes on, and it gives them then the confidence to
Yeah.
be able to then, it's a bit like we had a gentleman called Jerry who looked after his wife Diane, and he always said it was the stone in the water effect. The first time he took his wife Diane to a Singing for the Brain group, he said it was like dropping a stone into water, and the concentric rings that went out were then the different types of support that
Yeah.
came from that one interaction with the people at
Yeah.
that group. And for him, the rest was history. So over the 10 years then, he accessed lots of support, starting from one particular group.
And I think, do you know what is also really key to acknowledge is, you know, we're all different people, aren't we? We're all different types of people. And I know, you know, in work, I can appear as quite an extrovert, but actually approaching those groups can be really quite daunting.
Yeah, very.
But I know when I did it with my granddad, it was the best thing I did. And, you know, it was a little bit like I felt like I was going into the lion's den, and all what happens if people don't want to talk to me? And do you know what? I did it on a good day. I thought, actually, today, this isn't for me, this is for him. And I went, and it was the best thing I ever did. It really was. And similar, he then got a lot more support, and he got to know people. So actually, the onus wasn't on me then to just have the conversation. I think he got far more from other people than he did from the same conversations with me. So yeah, actually, on a good day, be kind to yourself when you're doing it, but it really is that ripple effect, isn't it?
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it can be really, really helpful to create a plan, encouraging people to get outdoors. So I think one of the things we always advocate for at Dementia Adventure is getting outdoors, those benefits, Manfree, I know, can tell us a little bit in a minute about why that's so good for the brain, what that does. But I think ultimately having that little bit of a plan. So for example, we used to do it with the garden. So in the early days, me and my granddad would make a plan about what we were going to plant. And then in the spring, we'd go out and we'd plant it. In the summer, we'd pick the flowers, bring them in. And we almost had it yearly rota. Now, as he progressed, he would project manage from afar. So, it might start, we'd have a conversation indoors, and then I might take a chair outdoors in spring, wrap him up, flask of tea while I did the planting. If I could get some planting on, that kind of thing. So what we did was we grew that and amended things. But it's that, that frost to flourish. It's keeping that continuity. And, if it wasn't right to go outside, actually just sowing those seeds, because Manpreet, I'm going to come to you. Those benefits of getting outdoors really are huge, aren't they? Like, what happens in the brain when we get outdoors?
There's just so many health and well-being benefits for all of us, for carers as well as the person diagnosed. So it provides us with a sense of belonging. It helps to modulate our circadian rhythms, so our sleeping and our eating patterns.
And what are our circadian rhythms? Sorry, just to
Sorry, so it's our sleeping and our eating. It's our internal body clock almost.
Right.
So going outside, getting that light helps to modulate that, and gives us also all the vitamin D that we need to keep our bones healthy and to keep our energy levels up.
A big immune boost, isn't it? Particularly like flu time of year, colds,
absolutely.
flus, bugs. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think it's also key to remember that, certainly at Dementia Adventure, we talk about this and, we really advocate for the person living the diagnosis. But those benefits are just as good for us, getting outdoors, really helps release our serotonin and our dopamine levels, our happy hormones. And so although we know that actually winter blues can be really prevalent for somebody living with dementia, I mean, we know statistics around people living with dementia experiencing depression are huge. We also know that that's the same for carers. So, that mood boost is there for absolutely everyone. I'm just going to come to one last question because I know we're racing through time here. Barry has asked, what are some indoor activities that can help someone living with dementia in the colder months? So I'm going to suggest a book that we recommend on our Understanding Dementia Better session, and it's called Cognitive Stimulation Therapy. It's by Amy Spector. It's book number 3, and it's all different activities. I really hate the word activity. I don't know about you guys. I just think it sucks. But it's lots of different things to do with somebody that stimulates the brain. So I found it really, really helpful because it just had different ideas when I got a little bit stuck. But guys, have you got anything that you would say? Jill, was there anything that you could do with your mum indoors that she'd love to do in this colder weather?
Mum always loved to do jigsaws. When I was little, there was always a jigsaw puzzle on the table, and she'd cover it up with a mat then, so we'd eat, and it was always under this mat. But as things progressed, her ability to be able to do the jigsaws sort of diminished a little bit. So when I was with my mum, and also I used to run a carers group in Castleford in West Yorkshire, there are organisations out there that you can have jigsaws made from photographs and pictures of your own. So for an example there, my mum loves Scotland and the Yorkshire Dales. And so having a jigsaw made in bigger pieces with a view or something that she can familiarise herself with, something that she knows, was a lot easier to do a jigsaw in that way, because you've got the narrative that comes with it.
Yeah.
Yes, this is where we
those conversations, doesn't it? Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, brilliant idea. Absolutely love that.
It's if you're unable to go outside as well, bringing the outside in, as Jill
Yeah.
mentioned earlier on. So, you know, just doing a bit of windowsill growing and planting. You don't necessarily have to get up to be able to do that on a windowsill. You can open, you'll be closer to the window, so you'll be feeling the light and sunlight on your face, and you can open up the window for a little bit of fresh air. Makes all the world a difference.
Yeah. And I think it is, isn't it? It's just sharing those small experiences. I'm going to pick up a question from Maria here, because I think this is something that crops up a lot, actually. Maria said, how can I cope when mum is always worried about anything and everything? She lives with us and has done for over 20 years, but also wants to go home. It's constant throughout the day, even though we distract. She takes her to many, many groups and she loves these. Now, Maria, I think what you're talking about here is, you know, when we're living with dementia, there's different areas of the brain that are affected. So, for example, it's often the hippocampus that's affected, and that's our factual recall area of the brain. And then we start to rely on a different area of the brain, which is the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is responsible for how we feel about events, but it's also responsible for our fight and flight area of the brain. So, you know, if we're living with that, it can be really challenging. Also, our perceptions can change because the brain might not pull the same reality as we are here. So there is lots and lots and lots going on. Distraction is great. Doing those things she loves is absolutely brilliant. But I would also say, come along to an Understanding Dementia Better session, because we can really unpick this in a bit more detail around that. But Manpreet, would you add anything to that about what Maria might be experiencing?
The only other thing I might add is that nature is just a really big distractor, because you go outside, and if it's possible to do so, I don't know if it is in this situation, but going outside uses up all your senses, and it just distracts you and the person that you're supporting, hopefully, from, you know, all those day-to-day problems, and time almost stops still, doesn't it, when you're outside and you're engaged in something.
Yeah. And I think really the take from today is that we advocate getting outdoors, retaining that sense of adventure and meaning and purpose, but finding what that is for the person, and don't be afraid to go with it in the moment. Dementia is hugely complex. It's a complex brain disease, and every single one of us is doing the best we can to support somebody, but it's not always easy. And you know what? We don't always get it right, but by just trying and doing those little things, if it's a fail, it's not even that, it's just not the right day. But if it's a win, you know, we really can make a difference. Now, I think today's been really, really helpful. I'm going to bring the session to a close, but I want to thank all of you who have joined us today. Now, we are unpicking the winter blues, and we have also put a blog together called Beating the Winter Blues, funnily enough, which is going to be available on our website. There'll be a link in the comments to that, and I believe there's going to be a little infographic that you could download alongside. So do have a look. Now, if you have enjoyed this session, we are going to keep this open on our Facebook page. Let friends and family know about it. The more we can share this and open this conversation up about supporting somebody living with dementia, the more we can support people to live well for longer. Again, if you miss it on our Facebook page, we also have a YouTube channel. Come and join us on there. It will be live for you to look at for many a time yet. We're going to keep running these sessions. This is a new narrative that we're giving a go this year, and we're going to be running a session once a month on lots of different subjects. By all means, give us some feedback about this, how you found this. We really, really love to know what your thoughts are. And if you've got a session you can suggest for us, pop it in that chat box. Let's see what we can do. Like I said, if you've got any comments or questions in the chat that we haven't got round to, we will be keeping those open, and we will absolutely be responding those as quickly as we can. So come and join us for February session. I am not going to ruin the surprise on what that will be about. Sign up to our newsletter if you haven't already, and I'm sure that will let you know when that is and what that's about. But firstly, I just want to thank all of you for coming, and a really big special thanks to Manpreet and Jill for joining me today. Really appreciate your input. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you ladies. And I'll see you all again soon. Take care. Have a good day.